All right. Welcome to Recruiting is No Joke. I am your host, Joel Lalgee. It is great to be with you guys here today. We've got another amazing episode. One of the best guests I've ever had. Don't tell the other guests that. No, but Michele, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here. Would love to get started with, I've been asking this question recently. Why don't you tell us who you are,
Mhm.
what you do, and then more importantly, I guess, who you do it for?
Yeah, sure thing. So I'm Michele Sutton. I am Senior Director of Talent Acquisition for Chobani, and I lead up all of the supply chain recruiting for the company right now. So I'm getting involved in a lot of our expansion and growth in manufacturing. I got involved in our acquisition of La Colombe. So it's been really, really exciting times for us over the last 3 years that I've been here, and just love working for a company with such a wonderful purpose that makes great products that as a mom, I'm also really great about putting in front of my family.
I was going to say, do you get discounts as
We
well?
don't get discounts per se,
What?
but we do get every location. We have got a giant cooler filled with yogurt. We've got cold brew on tap. So there is no limit on the amount of free yogurt and coffee that we can have
Okay.
to
All
fuel
right.
us through the day.
Well, I love it. Yeah. And so walk me through, how did you get started in recruitment? Like what brought you to the role you're at right now?
So I'm an anomaly of some sorts in recruiting. I actually went after and tried to get into recruiting. I know a lot of my friends kind of started out in different fields and kind of fell into things. I learned through working in college in retail. I'm going to date myself. I was assistant manager at a Sam Goody back in early 2000s, and I got a chance to hire and staff my team, and I just loved it. I loved talking with the talent. I loved finding the pieces of the puzzle to complete the team and really continue to build at the time, sales team. And I changed my major from a computer science major to an HR business major from that experience. Went to school for that, got a really great internship in flavor and fragrance manufacturing. Upon graduation, was really, really lucky to get a fantastic opportunity in med device working for Stryker for almost 8 years right out of school. After that, I kind of fell into a smaller family company, doing kind of a hybrid of medical and CPG type products, which then led me to full on go into the CPG realm. And I spent about, 4.5 years at Unilever, and really in particular supporting a lot of their brands with purpose. I did a lot of work with Ben and Jerry's and loved just working with a brand that not only put out products that I love, but really stood for something that I cared about. Spent some time there, got recruited over to Ferrero. So got to live the dream and have Nutella at my fingertips almost anytime I wanted.
Amazing.
And
That's all you have to
the
say.
Ferrero Rochers, yeah. And that was through the pandemic, and that was great. I got a chance to be a part of the acquisition of the Nestle brands that they acquired during that time. But I really, really missed that real strong purposeful brand. So when Chobani came calling 3 years ago, I really hopped on the opportunity. And while the scope is supply chain, it's kind of where I've been in a lot of my career, and I love working in manufacturing. I love seeing how things are made, and being a part of that.
I love that. I love that. And I think a lot of the guests we've had on this show definitely skews like tech heavy. And I think, for a long time, at least for the last like decade that I've been in recruiting, I think there's been what I would call like an obsession with like the tech and like startup space. But what I am noticing is manufacturing, and maybe some of the more like traditional jobs as well. Like I think of like the trades seems to be kind of making a bounce back. So, what are you seeing as far as, talent acquisition, finding people to work in facilities? Are you seeing this like a change perception in positions? Are you seeing more applicants because maybe the job market that we're seeing in other sectors kind of faltering and you're seeing open positions? Like, are you seeing much of a change there? And I guess what are your thoughts in terms of kind of the perception that people have of manufacturing and maybe where they're wrong with that perception?
I think we're definitely seeing an increase in applications. A couple years ago, I think we were averaging somewhere around 15 to 20 applications per requisition for the factory-based roles, and now we're well over 30 to 40. So there's definitely a renewed interest. I think a lot of it is driven by the economies and understanding that these are roles that can't be done remotely for the most part. So we're trying to find people that can come and work in our sites that a lot of times they need to relocate for. So, our strategy about how we go after talent and how we look at it is very geographically based. We try to understand where the top companies are in the areas and go after talent there. We're getting people who are very open to it. I think as certain areas are cooling off in terms of layoffs and things like that, people are looking to be a part of a growing company, be a part of a company and an industry that they're seeing a resurgence in. We're competing with lots of other factories that are building in some of the areas where we have factories. There's a lot of competing talent. A lot of times we're finding people outside of the area. So we have to be really competitive with how we offer relocation packages. One of the hardest positions to fill, I'll say, is maintenance techs. It's gotten to a point where there's not as many people new coming into the market. We're looking for seasoned people that can really jump in and just hit the ground running. So we've gotten to the point of offering reload packages for maintenance people to come and try to attract the best of the best to our areas.
And so maintenance tech, just to give some context there for anyone who doesn't know, I would take it those are professionals that are working on
On
the
the lines that
actual
are producing the product,
yeah,
making sure it's not going down, making sure that the hundreds of thousands of cups of yogurt are processing through at any given moment.
such a critical role.
Hmm.
For anyone who's listening out there, maybe they're in that stage of their career where, particularly recruiters, right, who maybe worked in tech and they've experienced like layoffs over and over, or they've kind of been on that roundabout of layoffs. So, like, what advice would you have in terms of like considering manufacturing, and why do you think potentially recruiters and other professionals should look at the space?
I think it's a really great role to get into, and I think it's transferable. If you can learn how to hire new technology and things like that, then showing that learning agility coming over to hiring manufacturing is really critical. But we are hiring people to be based in our locations. I think with that keeping in mind, people who love to build community is really great because when you're remote, it's a little bit harder. You're somewhat on an island sometimes, but when you're in a factory, when you're deep within a community and within a company like Chobani that does so much with the community in terms of giving back, building, baseball fields and doing events to combat, food insecurity, you get so ingrained with the community, and it's a really great place for people who want to feel that they can make an impact not only on giving great opportunities for people to grow, but also interacting with the community, learning more about the areas, being able to see the direct impact of your work. I would highlight that there's a lot of growth and stability. We're going to be hiring, we have a green fields going up in Rome, New York, and we're going to be hiring several hundred people over the next couple of years. There's just a ton of work to be done. If you're resourceful and love to research, it's a great field to get into. My team and I have been spending the last few months really scouring the internet, working on research to understand what other factories are in the area, what other factories have the same kinds of machinery that we use, and things like that to understand like what the market looks like. And it's just really fulfilling to see this map kind of evolve and understand that you are so deep in with that talent and understand it. But, a lot of us are learning as we go and really building that understanding. And with the right leadership and the right hands-on approach and willingness to jump in, I think that transition can be made.
I love it, and I love the stability there as well. It definitely seems like it's a space that it's growing and like evolving as well. So I'd love to know, like, in terms of like the facilities you're putting up, are you seeing a lot of advances with technology, and like how do you think the tech, so not necessarily tech in recruitment, but tech in actual manufacturing, like how is that impacting and like how is that changing even the types of people that you're looking to hire as well in terms of just thinking about things like automation and robotics and things like that.
Automation is huge. It's right now, it's actually one of our top priorities is finding more automation. There's a lot of things that go into manufacturing, palletizing robots and programming those and making sure that, you have people that know how to program and do the changeovers in the right way. And as we're bringing in new product, allowing them to be able to understand the technology. And we've got plants that kind of run the gamut of newer to older and kind of adjusting to that, understanding people's talent, and where we have the opportunity. But automation is becoming a real big challenge to find people because I think there's a lot of fighting for that type of talent right now. It's a growing field for finding people that are a little bit more senior in that space. You're limited, and location does also then cause some limitations as well. So my team and I have to really go ahead and find a lot of people to fill that top of the funnel to find the right person that is not only fitting the skill sets that we're looking for the specific factories, but also willing to live in those locations and move with them and or their families at the time. So we've got a number of automation engineers, automation managers that we're looking for because that's really the future of things. Like even our older factories, a lot of automation gets retrofitted into that, taking 100-year-old factory and modernizing it with a lot of the automation. But in thinking about the new factories that we're building, that's going to be something where it's going to be more ingrained in terms of building it in from the start and really thinking with that automation mindset. So we have a really large gamut in terms of how we're approaching this type of talent, but it's really difficult to find. And we are working very closely together to attract and bring that in and try to, it's not as glamorous, I think, in some of these tech startups and things like that on the automation versus, food manufacturing. So really selling the growth and the opportunity, the story, and finding people who have the right cultural fit for us in terms of wanting to explore that purpose and aligning that purpose with what we do.
Yeah, how do you, with some of these roles that you're hiring for, like even just thinking with like maintenance tech positions, for example, like how do you balance, the scarcity of talent? It sounds like it's, you at times you're having to find people to potentially relocate. So like how do you kind of balance that scarcity of people being out there with still maintaining, okay, we want someone that's, passionate about what we're doing and it actually cares about our mission. Like how do you kind of balance that?
It's a lot of understanding the why. Why do they want to come work for us or why they could want to come work for us? Because we do a lot of proactive work and selling the opportunity about who we are, understanding that a lot of people are interested in aligning their values with a company and making sure that that fits. I think also being in the food business, people are very passionate right now about their food, about what's in it. And, for Chobani, it's something that people can really stand behind. So we get a lot of interest that way. I think the other thing is talking to them about our growth plan and our growth journey as we're trying to sell people more on the opportunity. It's kind of for us too, doing research on where they're at now and being able to talk through compare and contrast about this company, where we're going, what the future plans are. There's a lot of selling involved in it, and also really just making sure that we do ask the questions as early on as possible, because at all stages of the interview you're going to be asked, why do you want to work for us? And making sure that they have done their research and making sure that they are aligned with who we are and being as informative as we can from the get-go has allowed us to make a lot of hires that way.
I've had several people on shows recently kind of share like what they look for in candidates, and one of the things that has come up, like you said, is have they done their research? Are they clear on like why they want to work for the company? Have you seen a decline in that? Over time, because I feel like a lot of the content I see, at least on platforms like TikTok and Instagram, it's kind of like anti that, or it's kind of like bashing that kind of idea. So have you seen kind of like less preparation with interviews? Like, what have you seen in terms of of that candidate base? Or are you consistently finding people who are like really well prepared and just seem like they're ready to go?
I see more and more depending on, and I've worked for brands that have been very well known to the public and brands that have not been well known to the public. When people say Chobani, a lot of times they do have a good understanding because most of the times they're customers of ours. Whereas sometimes when you work for either a larger parent brand or a brand that's not necessarily a consumer facing brand, they're not always aware. But I really feel that people are, at least at the more senior levels, they still are very prepared. I will come across occasionally a person who hasn't caught up on some of the things that have been out about us for a while, like the La Colombe acquisition. When I'm talking to people in the industry from a manufacturing standpoint, too, when they're not fully aware that we're building this brand new factory that we've been talking about in the news for months now. That's also like, okay, because a lot of times we don't get applications, but at the same point we're talking to people that are higher ups in the industry right now for at least for that project. And for them not to be aware of what's going on in the industries is kind of a turnoff in a way, because you're not keeping up on things, you're not up on trends. We look for people who are well connected in their networks, and we get a lot of employer referrals, which is fantastic. So that piece is definitely depending on level. I would say probably the lower level type roles in terms of more entry level, junior, they don't always have done their research, and it's not an immediate, no, but at the same point, there's so much information out there now. It's just really
Just
really
chat
hard to
GPT
not
it.
prepare. Yeah, you can chat GPT almost anything, and I know it's not always the correct way to look at it, but the information's at our fingertips. So for people to come in not understanding at all who we are, what we do, that's concerning. I mean, and at different levels, it sometimes shocks me when people are not aware of, the fact, our story, our journey, when I'm starting to talk to them.
Yeah, I mean, like, I would just give the advice, when you're looking at an interview before an interview, try and know about the company, so go to their I think most companies have, like, in the news section, or they
Oh
have
yeah.
something to do with PR, or you just do Google search,
Google search,
news.
ChatGPT, tell me what Chobani's been up to in the last year.
Exactly, it's like, have that baseline knowledge of that, understand about the position, and then I even go a step further and just understand whoever you're gonna be talking to.
Yeah.
So, if we were talking and I had a medical device background as well, I'm trying to make that connection with people.
Mhm.
And, it is surprising to me that the people aren't doing that, because I feel like every company I've worked at, that's always just been, kind of like a baseline expectation, and even that question, like, why do you want to work for us? It matters more than I think people think that it matters, but I think it just shows that you're someone told me once, they were like, "The way that you approach anything is the way you approach everything." So it's like, if that's how you can approach an interview, then how are you gonna be, with any of the projects you're working on, with the meetings you have internally, with clients, whatever type of role you're in. So I do think it's crucial. Are you guys using any AI within your process? And I guess, what are you kind of excited about within the talent space, when it comes to AI and maybe things that might make your job easier, or might just be able to change the focus? Is anything that's kind of standing out to you right now?
Yeah, we just implemented Gem, which is an overlay on top of our ATS, which is phenomenal. They have a AI bot sourcing, and it's been really great to uncover people within our database, people within other areas of that are linked in, because it kind of aggregates everything together for us in one place. Because going off to LinkedIn and having a
Yeah.
pipeline there versus going off and you got your Indeed pipeline going and then you have your ATS, it brings it all together, which is fantastic. So I am a very early adopter on technology. I love working with it. The AI bots are great. They do all the work in the background while you continue to do your own sourcing and uncovering new people, alerting you to it. I've used AI all the time. One of the things that I've been doing a lot lately is we use through Microsoft Office, we use Copilot. So Copilot and Teams, they do note taking. So I actually stopped taking my own notes during interviews, and I ask candidates always at the beginning, I'm going to turn on my note taker. Most people are not supposed. Most people a lot of times have their own as well. but it actually just allows you to have a much more natural conversation. I have the key points that I need to ask about in my screens, and in my interviews that I'm going to be talking to them about, and I can just free flow with the conversation without worrying about, did I miss something? Did I
Yeah.
capture it all right? Getting great summaries of resumes, even taking to a place of taking my notes from my launch calls with my hiring managers, taking the job description and using that to create interview guides through AI. It really saves a lot of time. It consolidates things, creating data points, creating PowerPoints, summarizing things. It's become a part of everything that I do, and my team is really coming along in that as well. I've got some team members that are a little further in their AI journey as others, and we all really enjoy hearing about how it's been making our lives and our jobs easier. And I've kind of even extended that into my personal life and creating travel itineraries through ChatGPT. It's a wonderful
Did you
tool to
plan
do
your
that for you.
upcoming vacation with
I
AI?
didn't. I'm actually a pretty well versed Disney traveler, but I did use it when I went to Scotland back in May to plan out some of the days and kind of consolidating all the things that we wanted to pack in the week that we were there, and restaurant recommendations and things like that.
I love that. I love it. What do you like? You mentioned you've got some of your team that's like, yeah, we're really exploring. Maybe some of your team that's curious, but not
Mhm.
necessarily like as engaged. What do you kind of see? And maybe you have other people in your team that are just like, yeah, I don't want anything to do with it, which is totally fine. But like, I guess what do you think that key is in terms of that mindset for how you should be exploring the tech? And like, I guess for recruiters out there, particularly that are, maybe they've been laid off and they're on the job market and they've got some time. Like, I guess what do you see as like the people who are doing well with the tech? Like, is there like a distinguishing like factor in terms of like their mindset towards it, or like what have you seen even out there with maybe people who are like, yeah, I don't want anything to do with it. Like, what do you think that the difference is between people who are like curious and not curious?
I think there's a huge curiosity and resourcefulness mindset. Like, there's a lot of things that you can play with and just figure out what's one thing that may be a difficult part of what I'm doing that I could use this for to make it better, and just trialing it from there. Like, I didn't even think about popping in job descriptions and trying to get questions out of Copilot until one of my coworkers brought it up, and like just listening, because I think some people get very intimidated by the vastness of AI and what can I do? How do I ask it the right questions? I've started to look into different content creators that talk about how to use different prompts, and when I went out to transform out in March, there was a lot of conversation and different tools about how to use AI, using it to do phone screens, using it to do your scheduling. I don't go back and forth with candidates anymore on things. I have a bookings link that I create, and I use that through my automated messages that I send out to people when I'm interested in talking to them. It shaves hours off my week and allows me to do more value added things. And I think talking through the team and creating an environment within my team that we are open to sharing new ideas, sharing how it's freed us up from other things, has also created an environment where people are getting more open to try just little tidbits of just adding it in. It's like, we don't have to change the whole recruiting world with AI all at once, but there's a couple of productivity things that you can do to make your world easier. Creating and summarizing my interview notes and being able to copy and paste them right into a candidate profile. So I have my notes right there, and it saves me so much time from typing it up, trying to summarize it all, and making sure I get everything. Like, it just those minutes add up, and really starting to show the people who are later adopters like how those little tweaks can make a difference. Now, I think that I have a very diverse team in terms of career journey. Some people that have been doing this for 20, 25 plus years, people that are in their year 3 and 4. And it's really just also bringing the mindsets together. There's all things that we can learn from each other, and thinking about, hey, this one, you're really good at this piece of the process. Would you mind kind of like listening to how they are doing their reach outs, how they're interacting with people and selling, because they have a lot more experience doing that, and using it as an opportunity to learn from each other, because there's, not just one way to do things, but looking at the ways that we can use AI to make ourselves more able to connect with people, which is the key of what we do. It just kind of makes it the better story.
It's funny with the note taking because it's like the weakest area of everything that I do. Like I remember when I started in sales, you remember like when you're in sales and you have to update the CRM like every single minute of every single day. And it was just like the thing I was terrible at. And I was like, man, if this technology was available, like when I got started, I just absolutely killed it. And then it's like, obviously, the longer you have this tech and the longer you use it, the better your notes are for candidates, for your database. Then you can, I know with some of the tools that are like specifically like interview intelligence tools, it's not just the saving on the note taking, it's like being able to coach interviewers and say, hey, maybe you're dominating this interview with this specific type of person each time. Let's coach you on this. Or maybe you're just seeing like negative patterns within an interview that you can come in and kind of coach people and help people and train people up. And it's huge. And I think having that mindset, like you said, of like, how can I use this tech to really focus on, really just to connecting with people, right? And I think that's why people have to keep their minds. Is there anything that you've like, for example, there's a lot of talk right now about you've got these like fake candidates in the pipeline. People are talking a lot about, and then you also have these AI interview screeners, right? Where it's like maybe you got 1,000 applicants, and you're like, all right, everyone's going to do this AI phone screen. Thoughts about that? Whether it's like that's a good thing, bad thing, and like it's here to stay. What's been your experience with that?
I've had some experience with some AI interviewing in the past. I haven't done much with it lately. I think it's something that we're exploring. It's not from our standpoint on the supply chain side, and I have a counterpart that deals in sales and our corporate offices that we have very different problems, I think, in terms of they have the resume volume and the application volume that they're sorting through that's way higher than what we're looking at. Whereas
Yeah,
my team kind of goes out and hunts a little bit more in terms of we don't get the application, so we have to actually be out there doing that. But I know when I do have openings where I get a ton of requisitions, anything that I could use to help me focus myself in on the most qualified people the soonest is definitely welcome. I'm very open to trying those new technologies. I've had some opportunities with grading resumes in the past, and stack ranking through a system in a previous role. And that was really helpful to focus on. Right now, we're kind of using a mix of being able to use our overlay with Gem to search through the applications to be able to focus, which is super helpful because not all ATSs are set up to be that user friendly. And then also trying to create, basic screener questions to kind of get us to that point. The AI piece and the interview piece, I'd love to try to start to trial that and see how that could potentially get us to a place of better candidates faster, and better slates quicker to the hiring managers, which I think is the ultimate goal. I think it's an area that we're still looking to explore a little bit more in, but we're all very open-minded about it.
yeah, yeah. It's funny. It's either talk to people who are really open minded, or like definitely talk to some people who are like, no, I would never want to do that, or people say, yeah, no, candidates would never want to do that. And then I've actually asked candidates on the street, and it's like 50-50. It's like I think
Yeah.
some are like, hey, I would love that. I wouldn't get judged as much with the AI versus a human. Like I've always felt really judged. And then other people like, no, I would never want to do that. And it's just funny how it's split. But it's also like a reminder you just can't make assumptions even like what candidates want,
No.
because
And I think it also
people want
depends on
different
the
things.
level of the role.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because, If you're applying for a very senior level role in an organization, you really should be having human contact as your first contact. It's a lot of really building, but in areas where there's high volume and you really need to sort through, sometimes, if you're willing to go that extra step before talking to a person, you could really set yourself out as being really willing to go along with the process and putting more information about yourself out there to help us determine quicker if you're the right fit.
I feel like the society as a whole is getting more used to
Mm.
AI. So even like, it was like a couple of years, no, maybe not even a couple of years ago. It's like a year ago. Someone, a tech founder, like replaced all his customer service with customer service agents, and it didn't go down well. And people are like, "Oh, it would never ever work." And I'm like, I don't know if it will never work, but I think like it's like you using AI in your personal life. So now
Mhm.
you're comfortable with that, and it's like the more people are using AI in their own personal lives, and then they're going to be more open in the interview process, and they're going to be more open to it. And so then I think it's like looking at, okay, in our particular process, does it make sense? Like, is it in line with what we want to accomplish as a company? And then I love that example you used too, where like you have a counterpart that's doing corporate positions and he's getting bombarded with resumes. So I think it's just being lean and agile and going, okay, well, what's the actual problem we're facing here? That's still so important, and that's usually the piece that's missing as well. Where especially as people are building the technology, it's not they're not necessarily thinking like, what are the problems? And everybody has different problems. Everyone has different
Yeah.
challenges to solve. I'm yet to see a good AI agent that can kind of like headhunt people, because it's just in that scenario, it's like people, if they're not looking and they're not actively looking, I don't know. I haven't just yet to see like a really good like sales AI
Yeah,
um,
no, I'm
tool.
not too worried about it coming after my role anytime soon. On that side, most of the candidates we talk to are proactive, they're passive candidates, and it's
Yeah,
a huge piece of that connection and building. But that's where we're looking at determining how we best use AI in our spaces to fix the problems that we know that we have, whether that's going back and forth, trying to manage our calendar, summarizing our candidate interactions, and scheduling next steps, or looking at even travel, like what's the best route to get a candidate here to this remote location potentially, and figuring that out. It's not necessarily going to be the same for everyone, even within the same company.
yeah, that's huge. Well, you mentioned something else too, and I think I've been trying to create more content around this because I think it's often misunderstood. You mentioned a couple times like trying to find like the most qualified person. We're thinking of like who's qualified. Like, what are you typically looking for? Let's say for a maintenance tech, like a really qualified maintenance tech, like what are you typically looking for? And I guess like for job seekers who are out there, I mean, people who are looking, like how would you have them think about, like, what is actually qualified? Because I think there's a lot of content out there, it's like, "Shoot your shot," just apply to everywhere. Doesn't matter if you're qualified or not, or everyone's qualified, you've got the skills that are transferable. From your perspective, like, what does, like, a qualified person actually look like?
I think for it depends on the level and the role, but I'm talking in thinking about this from an experience point of view. It's really having good examples prepared of the types of, when I'm talking about technical roles, types of machines you worked on, some of the big projects that you've led, to be able to talk through those examples. We want to hear about specifics that you've done. When it comes to something like a maintenance tech, tell me about how got your machinery running more efficiently, how you reduced downtime, how that how you understand that impacts the financials of your business and the productivity. I think those kind of things really come into play than someone who's just I know, if I turn this button, this does that, and I can do this. I know, understand this machinery. But people who are really curious about understanding how the role that they're interviewing for plays into the bigger picture of the
It's
organization.
huge.
How is it going to make an impact? And, what does that mean for them?
That's huge. I feel like that's just for every single role now. Like, I think we've just hit that moment in time where even for talent acquisition, right? It's like, can you communicate the hires and how they're impacting the business? Do you know how your business is run? And it just seems like we're in that day and age. It doesn't really matter what role you're in. You have to know the value you bring into the organization and be able to communicate that. Well, look, I know we're at time here. So, where can people find more information about you, Michelle? Where can people find more information about Chobani, about the roles that you're working on as well?
So for me, I'm Michele Sutton on LinkedIn. You can find me there. I am very active on there, as most TA professionals are, especially one who's actively working to fill a lot of roles right now. And you can come find out everything that's going on with Chobani and La Colombe at our website, chobani.com/careers. Both companies we've consolidated into one career site, and we are hiring.
I love it. I love it. And then one last question here. If someone's reaching out to you on LinkedIn, like a candidate, and they're following up, what's your advice for people for just like reaching out? And obviously, you're working on a lot of different positions. You know, it's not like you're just sitting around doing nothing. So, what's like a what's a do for a message and what's a don't for a message?
I think the do for the message is know which area or which, if it's, even if it's not a specific job, what type of role that you're looking for, and that you've done your homework on us to know that, what type of roles we hire for, what our locations are. It's all out there. And expressing your interest to me there. A lot of times my don't is, don't reach out just asking what opportunities do you have available. That's probably most recruiters' pet peeve. We want to know that you've looked into it, because when we stop and go through the messages that we get, and we get a lot of them, we want to know that you did your homework, and I'm more likely to go check out your profile. If it's not a position I'm working on, the fact that you did your homework on us, on a role or our location or an area, I'm going to actually probably go look at your profile. And if I see like it's got a great potential for some area or opening within the company, I'm going to send it to one of whatever recruiter I know is potentially working on that role or is in that area for their pipeline going forward, because that resourcefulness and that willingness to kind of do the work ahead is really impressive to most of us that get bombarded with tons of emails every day
Yeah, how many
asking
how many
about
messages do you
work.
think you get a day on LinkedIn?
Oh, I think I get anywhere from 20 to 30 a day.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, recently when we posted TA roles, I went from 0 to 800 requests in my LinkedIn box, and I
Well, I
finally
saw
got through them.
yeah, well, I saw you guys were hiring
We are hiring TA too. So for TA people out there, if
you're gonna
there are
get
on-site
bombarded now.
opportunities, we are hiring to be the principal recruiter for Rome, New York. If you are interested, please reach out to me directly.
I love that. I love it. Well, look, and that's the thing people got to remember. Like when you're like to me, I always say like short messages, short and sweet to the point. Like you said, if there's a specific job, cite that, and do that research. Like if you're recruiting for facilities, supply chain. So if you're not in supply chain, probably don't look at who's doing the recruiting for those corporate roles. Like you mentioned, the other recruiter, and then when you do reach out, I always say follow up as well because that LinkedIn inbox is terrible. It's like one screen. So you have to kind of follow up a couple times with people, and I've even noticed like I'll follow up 2 or 3 times with people, and then never like, ah, you again, because it's like the inbox is so bad. So it's like if you're getting 20 to 30 a day, and then it's like 3 days have gone by, that's 90 messages to stay relevant, you have to kind of message people. And I always say just be polite and
Yeah,
patient
there's
and
nothing
all that,
wrong with being
right?
persistent if you're polite.
Persistent and polite.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way to do it. Well, Michelle, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for taking the time. And guys, I would say if you want to connect with Michelle, just be patient as well. Obviously, getting a lot of people reaching out, and if you're looking and interested in those TA roles, definitely go check those out. And then if you guys have questions for me, you can always go to www.therealistrecruiter.com. Ask any questions that you have on the podcast. If you want to be involved in somehow, let us know. If you made it to the end of the show, really appreciate you guys tuning in and staying for the whole show. And we'll be back next week with another great guest. Not as great, but another great guest. And thanks again, Michelle. It was great having the
Thank you so much for
conversation.
having me.
Yeah, it was great.